In 1996, after a decade of dating fellow journalists, I dated a stripper. Her real name wasn't Rochelle, but that's the one of the names she danced under, so I'll use that. Both journalists and strippers were used to suits. Can you hear without this? Rochelle asked me out. More specifically, she stuck her tongue down my throat at a nightclub. Strippers are women of action. Journalists are men of reflection. We met after a Broward Community College production of some avant-garde play that I don't remember the title and whose content I did not understand. Strippers, they fancy themselves as independent actresses, and journalists, we fancy ourselves as artsy spectators. I didn't know Rochelle, but her friends knew my friends. Because of the nature of our businesses, strippers and journalists, we meet a lot more people than secretaries and accountants. After the play, Rochelle, the cast, and my friends headed to the Armadillo Cafe to celebrate. I sat across the table from her, and I ordered the chili relleno. I thought it was good, so I offered her a bite. She accepted by opening her mouth and elevating her chin ever so slightly in that universal sign of "feed me." When children do that, it's cute. When strippers do it, it's sexy. So I fed her a bite. After dinner, we went to Shooters. Rochelle pushed me on a couch, climbed on top of me, and kissed me. And like a dummy, I asked why. Journalists cannot enjoy the moment if they do not understand it. She told me it was because of the chili relleno. I said I did not understand. She asked me why the fuck that mattered. Strippers can't enjoy the moment if they're forced to understand it. I never did get a good explanation, but since sex was involved, I subjugated my curiosity. The sex wasn't intercourse, though. Rochelle feared AIDS, but also sneered at condoms. So we did everything but a few things that had never occurred to me. Journalists have lots of intercourse, but not much else. Rochelle said that if I took an AIDS test, we could, and I quote, fuck like rabid badgers. As a first sign that this relationship was doomed, I never got tested. When she asked why, I said I was too busy and I just didn't feel like it. Besides, I liked the sex that we were having. Journalists are accustomed to writing the same stories over and over again. At first, we got along because we had several things in common. Neither of us had a college degree, because neither stripping nor journalism really requires one. And both of our professions gave us similar perspectives on life. Strippers and journalists, we suffer from the same disrespect gap. We don't respect, our clients don't respect us, but we don't respect them either. Strippers think the guys who give them money to get naked are suckers. Journalists think their readers are morons. Rochelle was a nice woman, slightly damaged by a lifetime of benign neglect and virulent objectification. I admired her, not for what she did for a living, but how she survived it. Out of this affection, I would do almost anything for her, except stay in a relationship. I'm reluctant to describe one of the big complications because it didn't affect me the way you might think. Rochelle had a boyfriend, but he was becoming a woman. He had already started the hormone treatments. Rochelle was unsure that she could become a lesbian, so her boyfriend and her had agreed that she could date other guys until she could figure it out. The reason this didn't bother me is that I viewed my relationship with Rochelle journalistically. See, I have a theory. You can't work 8 hours a day, 1/3 of your life, and come home without your job affecting the way you perceive the rest of your life, including your relationships. I've interviewed people who've endured grueling personal crises, and that's made me much more sympathetic and much less judgmental about everybody. So I didn't judge Rochelle for stripping or her boyfriend for transitioning. They were both better people than many of the fine, upstanding, and corrupt bankers, businessmen, and lawyers I had interviewed in my life. But because of Rochelle's profession, she perceived her life and her relationships as sexual drama. She once showed me a Polaroid of her boyfriend's ample bosom, and he had some mighty fine breasts. Looking at the photo is not the problem. Her question was, whose breasts were nicer, hers or his? And that's like an edgier version of, do these jeans still make me look fat? There's no way out of that alive. The boyfriend bugged me not because of what he was going through, but because he was there at all. Journalists may relish confrontation at work, but we can't handle any of it at home. So like a good journalist, I added up the facts. And I decided journalists and strippers are not career compatible, and that Rochelle and I, our relationship, had all the permanence of newsprint. But instead of breaking up with Rochelle outright, I did the cowardly, typical guy thing and made myself physically and emotionally not available. But getting rid of a stripper is like trying to get rid of a journalist. Tell a journalist no comment, and he'll never go away. Same for a stripper. The more I ignored her, the more she pursued me. When that didn't work, she tried insults. You know, I can have any man I want. I can do a lot better than you. And as an objective journalist, I had to agree. I said, yeah, you're right. I'm way above my pay grade here. In a final attempt to keep me, she even tried to recruit a friend for a threesome. And I asked, a female friend, you want a guy? Is that why you don't like me? No, I like you a lot. I really do. I don't think I could handle a threesome. What's not to handle? And I explained that one night, while waiting around on deadline, some of my fellow journalists, 2 men and 2 women, we actually devised some rules for a threesome. 1, enlist only 1 man in the threesome, which I think is a tad sexist, but one of the guys mentioned the term cross swords, and I thought that was really descriptive writing. So. 2, know the third person as an acquaintance, but not as a close friend. 3, never see that person ever again. 4, engage in a threesome at a location far removed from any place you might visit with any future girlfriend or boyfriend, lest you would be reminded of an amazing sexual experience and then, by comparison, be underwhelmed by the individual you're now with. So, for instance, a hotel room in a nearby city, that's okay. Your bedroom is not. My only contribution to this discussion was this. The threesome cannot focus totally on my pleasure. The 2 women must also be attracted to each other, because pleasing 1 woman is difficult enough. Looking faintly disgusted, like she just drank some fairly spoiled milk, Rochelle asked me why we had come up with these rules at all, and why I had come up with mine in particular. And I replied, journalists don't enjoy being the center of attention the way strippers do. We pretty much prefer to observe on the edges. We don't like to be on stage. And Rochelle replied, well, that's the difference between strippers and journalists then. You guys just sit around talking about stuff. We actually do it. And at that moment I knew that she was right, and I knew I had to do something, so I broke up with her. And a few weeks later, I started dating the woman who would become my wife. Like Rochelle, my wife had to ask me out. Renata is a musician. Don't get me started about journalists and musicians.